Hey guys, this is Kirob speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to take a look at some of the new developments that are coming to Light Campaign v4.2. And no, still no turbos, but there is a lot of other cool stuff that has been added, most of which was on the list. So yeah, let's take a quick look at what we have here. One thing that I need to mention up front is that well, is known already if you have followed the news, but the databases will not be compatible to the old ones from 4.1 because so many different things are changing, and making them compatible is a lot of work that would be subtracted from the actual adding of new things. But what we are going to do, because of how much trouble it is causing, is to switch the directory of the folders to which the databases are saved, and also they are named differently. So what will happen is that you can freely switch between Light Campaign v4.1, which will be remaining a legacy branch that will always be selectable in future, and the new Light Campaign v4.2. So if you have cars you really cherish, they won't go away. Neither do the engines. The mods might, but that is not in our powers to control. So yes, that is the situation. So you don't have to fret about that. You can switch back to 4.1 and nothing will be gonzos. And now let's get into it, and let me show you some of the new really cool stuff that we have added. Here we have example number 1. We have a bog standard 2-liter inline 4, our standard engine. It's a modern one. Alu seal and dual overhead cam 4-valve, exactly square, and well, 2 liters. And I've put balance shafts on there. Oh yes, by the way, let me show you while we're here. Let me show you the effect of them. Weight difference still not implemented, but all the other effects are, I believe, or almost all. Response still needs to change, I see. This is currently a little bit bugged, so it updates twice instead of just once, it seems. So you won't see the change without me holding it currently. But you see, like, okay, yeah, reliability is going up because of lower stress and stuff, I believe. Let's see if that is correct. But no weight changes and things. But what you're seeing is, well, we have a bit of a power drop across the spectrum. So yes, adding balance shafts does give you access to quite a bit higher revs, as well as well, sizes for the engine, but at the same time it does sap some power out of your system. But now let's move forwards, and here now we have implemented the springs and lifters properly. It was just a small change that was remaining to be put in there. And let me show you what it does. So this is our bog standard engine, which is correctly set up. But what happens if we zoom out a bit by upping the rev limiter? Well, you see this stuff over here starting to fail, and well, there's valve float and all. But this is not the problem of the dual overhead cam, because you can see here that, well, we could make the engine run up there with stiffer springs. You can push it. The cam profile, of course, doesn't give you that much over there, but you can definitely push it there. And also to note is that as you push up the springs, the engine becomes slightly less efficient. More visible in the efficiency graph over there, that when you are lowering your spring stiffness, you do get slightly better efficiency because you have less friction in the system. So yes, also higher cam profiles actually lower your maximum RPM, and you have to compensate with springs and lifters. Of course, the effect of springs and lifters is more pronounced than that of cam profile in that regard, but still something that needs to be done. Very mild cam profiles do exert very little resistance on the valve train, and you don't have to have that stiff springs then to bring them back. But if you have lots of lift, which is part of the cam profile setting, then yeah, you do need stiff springs to bring it back. So that is what we are doing here. An eco engine. This is kind of the issue we have had before. This would be a normal torque curve for an engine like this in the automation version you're currently playing, 4.1. And while this is a realistic torque curve, it is not one that you would see in reality. Because who cares about all this power beyond 7,000 in a little normal family car that is supposed to be redlining at 3.5, at 6.5, I mean. 3.5 would be, that would be special. Anyway, so of course what the developer does, developer of the car that is to just lower the setting for springs and lifters so that you get a peak where you roughly want it, like 5.7, something around there seems about right, like that's good, and then cuts off the revs where the engine chooses to not explode when running, so that you get a decent, well, that was not enough cutoff, so that you get a decent looking nice torque curve. There you see it drop, and there you have your little drop that you're so familiar seeing in real life engines. So yes, it will be a lot easier now with this new system to actually recreate real life engines that way too, because you can actually choose where you put your maximum RPM for the application you're seeking. Now let's make an engine that kinda revs and stuff. Oh no, wait, something else first. Something else that was pointed out in the previous video's comments. Someone made the comment that, oh well, the harmonic dampers should actually have an effect on crank strength. Because longer cranks do tend to have quite a bit of torsional stress put on them, and dampers actually do help that issue and make them more viable. So yeah, let's build a quick little engine here that is not so little. It's a 3-liter inline 6, that's fine. Oh well, and now you see we have a bit of a problem here. Even this bog standard engine I've just gone through and selected like reasonable parts. It's just a 3-liter engine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it can only rev to 4,000 RPM or slightly below that before it actually disintegrates the crank. Well, that is not great, is it? So yeah, what you do need to do is to actually put on a harmonic damper on this one. This effect is way less pronounced for an inline 5, where you can rev to 4,500. An inline 4, 5,000. An inline 3 has different problems. It's just too large. It's not smooth enough. That is a different problem. It's a different kind of problem, and an accurate one too. Like if you have an extremely rough running engine just because of the configuration, of course the internals want to disintegrate a little earlier. But yeah, so here you can really see that the strength of it is hampered by the lack of harmonic dampers, and this brings it up to normal levels. You can see for the that the inline 6 of course doesn't have the option for balance shafts because it's an inherently balanced engine configuration. There's no need for them. But if you are going to an inline 5, for instance, then you see that, okay, yeah, without you can rev to 4.5, with harmonic damper you can rev to 7.2, and then if you want to go even a little bit higher, you can make it smoother. You see the stats change for pistons and conner rods for the balance shafts as well. Slightly higher still with balance shafts. Of course, that is not the main purpose of balance shafts versus harmonic dampers. Balance shafts always come in conjunction with a harmonic damper, so that is included in this. But the switch from harmonic damper to balance shaft is engine smoothness, simple as that. So this system seems to be working really well and gives some interesting compromise if you're, well, well, not right now, because they weigh a fair amount. They're not super heavy. They weigh a fair amount, like 5 extra kilos on an engine like this, 6, 7 maybe if it's a larger engine. So it does make the engine heavier, but also you have the power sapping, and thus worse fuel economy, larger friction values, and so on. So yes, it's an interesting compromise in design, which one you want to go for. And I think they are... currently we don't have unlock years for those. They are always available, but we have to look into that. But anyway, this was old stuff that now is... that old stuff. It's 4.2 stuff, but I talked about it before. Now that's almost properly implemented. and the effects are quite as nice as I thought they would be. So good for gameplay. So now we're switching to something that can rev high, very high. And what we're going to do is just to build an engine that can show the spectrum over the whole rev range, so that we can explore a little how these settings, but also, here's the new stuff, intakes, all the intake options, yes, and all the resonances, and these have been revamped as well, and yes, I'm going to show them to you. So first things first, I am going to show you the massive effect of the springs and lifters. This is with CamPro 555. We can go from 4,000 RPM peak power to 7,400, and well, if you're going to 100 here, oof, yes, that's not revving that high, because of how aggressive the cams is. So lowering the cam profile actually gives you slightly more revs, because it makes it slightly less aggressive on the springs and lifters. So yes, you can rev slightly higher with lower cam, but on the other hand, well, you are going to produce the peak power at a lower point in the rev range. And of course, quality can help this whole thing. If it updates, there we go. Yes, plus 15 quality meme engines, there we go. And then your cam profile being high up there also helps. This engine is not really good for any high revving at the moment, because it has shitty components in it. And shitty means compact intake, which is just designed to be compact and cheap and doesn't really optimize any kinds of flows in the system. So let me see, do I have that? Oh yeah, it's just not really made for these revs. Let's make the engine a little smaller so that it doesn't complain as much. Okay, now it's actually revving to 12,000. But now let's take a look at what these new intake systems are doing. Fully revised the effect of them. Before, of course, you only had the option between standard, performance, and race. And there was really not much tied to it, apart from a little bit of a bonus to the torque curve in general, and so on. That's really nothing. Very flat and bland decision. Now that has changed entirely. Let me show you. So this is the compact intake. Let's go to the low. And you see in the comparison that has made a significant difference to the low-ish RPM section. You can't really build, well, you can, but you can't put it in a car, can't really build intakes that would favor revs around 2000 RPM, because that would require something like intake manifold length of 3 meters 20 or something like this, or something crazy. So that's not really possible. And what you're doing is go to something around like 80 centimeters instead, and or say 3 feet or whatever. And then you use the what would it be, like 4th or 3rd harmonic in the system to bolster your low-end power. But yeah, that's really difficult to do. Trucks do it to some extent, but even those don't have enough room in the engine bay to fit in the big stuff. So yes, this is about what you get for the low optimization. And then let's switch around. I'm going to keep this base curve the same as for the compact, so let's switch to a mid. And you can see here, if we now directly compare, let's now switch the base curve. You can see that, yes, mid, and don't forget we are revving to 12,000 here, so this is a large scale what we're looking at. You can see the crossover point around somewhere around 4,200. That is dependent where they are producing these bumps, is dependent on how large the engine is. Currently, of course, this is a very small one, so the resonances in general will be quite a lot higher up. If I up the bore, these will come down. So let's update the graph, and now we have it. These graphs are not currently updating at all points correctly. So now, I guess you have to trust me when I'm saying that these have moved down a significant portion. Yeah, about 1,000, or a little bit more than 1,000 RPM was the move they just made. So I think that's somewhat reasonable. And then let's see what the other fuel systems, the other intakes are doing. And so let's go back to the standard low. This was optimizing 4,500 there, and now let's switch over to this was mid. Now we have variable, which in general basically has a switch between a low setup and a medium setup, and it is in general much better flowing towards the high end too, somewhere between the performance mid and the standard low. And as you can see, that's a nice combination. It will cost you a lot in engineering and just manufacturing effort, because you need different pipings, like two completely separate, almost separate, kind of baked into one variable length intakes. And then we have the performance. As you can see, that doesn't have the low boost, but it does extend the torque curve further to the top. Then we have the performance high, which goes even further. Let's compare them directly. And of course, keep in mind that this engine is not made for these revs, because cam profile and such, right? Also, exhaust. We haven't looked at that yet. This is currently on a short cast. Then let's get this one in, and you see the high version of this just cuts out more of the low stuff and adds even more to the high end, over 8,000 RPM there. And then we have race, which becomes all resonancy down here, around 10,500 RPM. You get a big boost for a small engine like this, and that will be quite interesting for smaller race engines, smaller naturally aspirated air race engines, while this stuff over here will be more like the bumps that you will want to use in normal higher performance engines. It's quite useful, but race intake, oh yeah, it is a massive difference, but you're also sacrificing a lot of low end. As you can see, there's now a lot of reasonable choices to make here, and an actual payoff between the shitty stuff that is super cheap, low end stuff that really works well for economy, and depending on your engine size and how high you rev, you might say that basically the mid stuff here is the equivalent of the race or even performance. Not quite getting there, of course. The race is always very high RPM focused because of the somewhat short intake manifold length and, well, trumpets, right? But now let's set it back to standard low and see what the exhaust side does. First, cast log. Oh, it gets killed. Let's switch over to stress, from stress to flow rather. And you see here we have now. Oh, there's something else I need to talk about. I know this is getting quite long, but hear me out. I find this absolutely fantastic for the game. So these also will have flow limitations baked into them, and if you are on a standard low, I don't think this is currently implemented just yet, but it will be. There will be, just like on the exhaust side that you know from the headers, which was already kind of working, there will be the same flow limitation mechanics on the intake side. So a standard low doesn't flow well high up, and you will run into flow limitations there. So this one will start to light up on the higher end. I think we put it on race. Do we see any flow limitations here on the intake? No, so it's not implemented yet. But yes, stepping through. So the top one here is cast. The bottom one is the cast log, which is absolutely awful. For an engine that tries to rev high at least, and produce a lot of power. This engine is set up way too powerful for this one to be viable, but it will be dirt cheap to make. So cast, your kind of default shitty take on it, and then tubular, basically like short cast, but in good, and much more difficult to build, of course. So you do get a general boost to your entire range, more or less. It's just like, do we want to design it properly, or do we just put on some cast piping there, which is not really that great. That's your choice. Long tubular gives you even more of the higher up effects and more resonances, and then race, yeah, really gets you these bumps there are nice. Really gives you some resonances up high as well, and these move as you change the overall scale of the engine. And the larger you go, the lower they get. Alright, I think we've finally exhausted the options on this page and explained enough about the intake side as well. I think you're getting it now. Did we talk about the tuning? I believe we did. It was already in the last one. That one is, of course, working, and we do have... where is it? We do have ultimate avgas and ethanol. Well, ethanol in air quotes. Yeah, I remember explaining that. And DevMeth 200. But we are going to go a little farther than this today. We are going to venture into some of the changes in the car designer, which you will be very happy about seeing. So let me build a car and then come back to you and we talk about some of the changes. Alright, here we go. We has car. Nothing in particular about this one. But let's go through a few things and you will see some of the stuff that has changed. We are going to change the limiter functionality so that it is a bit more intuitive to use. You can activate it and then you have your limiter options as per usual. Also text input, of course. It's still not quite right with the layout and stuff, but you're getting there. That's the only change on here so far. There will be more. But here, that is one that many of you have been asking for over the years, and this is not absolutely final, as in that it is going to make it or not, make it into 4.2 or not, but it is functional. So you can now change the individual sizes of your tires and the rims as well. So, as you can see, you can make, different looking cars. This one is not really made for tires that size. But yes, we can make very memey cars. And you can try to drive them in BeamNG, and you will find out why car makers don't really do this stuff much. Like, to a small amount, if they if they do want to get some specific looks. But it's rarely to do with, like, extremes have rarely to do with handling, or would rather, are rather to be avoided when it comes to handling. So yes, you will find out when you export that into Beam, that's for sure. Yes, so you can determine these settings for width, for overall size, and for rim diameter, for front and rear individually. And of course, who doesn't want to drive a car like this? I mean, come on, isn't it beautiful? With the car all set up normally again, we are on to the next tab, and brakes. Yes, finally, we have the solution to the brake setup weirdness that has been kind of plaguing this design for a few years. And now, what you can do is to individually set them up with force instead of brake bias. So brake bias slider has been thrown out, and instead you're controlling front force and rear force, and you can set everything up individually that way. And that makes just life so much easier, and also makes it such that you have a lot more control over how things are playing. For instance, what you would be running into was that on very fast sports cars you would need lots of brake, like massive rotors, and then you would be seeing that, well, I need those for getting the sportiness brake fade down, but you really don't need them for brake force. So what you can do now is to just lower that brake force and you will be fine. While for smaller cars, when you're going like, yeah, we do have a 2-piston, but we really don't need much size in here because we're not driving it that hard. So let's go with 2. We do need the pads for extra comfort maybe, and then you can up the brake force instead to compensate. So that also works because you're not running into that brake fade, or you don't care about the sportiness brake fade, and you're saving weight that way and some cost. That also means that now old cars are no longer super under-braked. I've rebalanced the drums such that they actually can brake a car. Not brake, but brake. Yeah, you get it. Well, they are going to run at large values for front force and rear force, that is. But they will still produce massive amounts of brake fade if you're running a faster car. Oh yeah, you see the same thing is happening here with the rear brake. So we do have a solid disc. It produces way too much force, and instead of having to fiddle around with the brake bias, you now just can pull down the brake force and get it right. On the aerodynamic side of things, next little dev update, we will have to talk about under tray stuff, but this is not implemented yet, and there are no new options available here. Hint, 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 hint. There will be some. And let's move on forward to entertainment. We have changed the system. This is mostly something that you campaign players will be quite ecstatic about, because you have been running into issues, especially those of you who were playing on easier difficulties, where lots of tech pool would actually be rather detrimental to you, because you would only have access to like super high up and thusly super expensive entertainment options. Now what we have done is to switch out the functionality of picking those to the subsystem. So what you can have here is that you have a list of all those systems, and all that are unlocked can be picked. You can even go back and put in a radio if you like to, or a phonograph if you so desire. And there's nothing that is blocking you out. And if it is locked out still because it's unlocked, it's not unlocked, then you see, oh, when it unlocks. Oh yeah, this option becomes available in 1.2013. And if nothing is unlocked yet, well, this one should be deactivated first of all, but if nothing is unlocked yet, then you can't switch to that tab yet. So that works really well. And that will get rid of most of the issues that you were having with tech pool and so on, and large unlock costs. All that is gone anyway for different reasons, because I've revamped the effect of tech pool to be quite a bit simpler, but much more playable and much more intuitive. So tech pool now is just for unlocking things, and any excess tech pool that you have is straight up lowering your engineering time. So simple enough, right? Yeah, why does it have to be more complicated than this? Well, I don't know. And then we do have the same thing happen on safety. As you can see here, we have the various sets for the different safety options. Here we have two locked, one unlocked, two locked still, and you can see when they would be unlocking as well. So overall, much more usable. It's a little less straightforward with just picking what you can. But with these options being available, mostly it should be on the correct one, and it does make it such that when you facelift after 10 years, your old option is not all of a sudden gone, and you have to re-engineer the whole damn car just because this one option disappeared from your list. So again, a massive improvement to the flaws that were there before. But you might have spotted two other sliders here. We're not going to talk about them this time around, but yes, you see it correctly. There are weight distribution and weight optimization sliders available now. And just very briefly what they are supposed to be doing. Weight distribution is moving weight about in the car so that you can tune it more to the front, more to the rear. The further you go away from the center, the more engineering time penalties you incur. And for optimized weight, it is kind of the same thing. Deviating from the center does cost you engineering time, making the car heavier, more sturdy, more solid, better damped, not with water but to sound, so more comfortable is one option, making it heavier. And going lighter, making it less sturdy, making it quite a bit more expensive, like fancier materials, lighter weight materials and so on, but that comes at a big cost. Material costs go up, the car becomes quite a bit lighter, and lots of engineering time needs to go in there. Those are not hooked up to anything yet, just yet. There's nothing behind them at the moment. The dependencies have been designed, they just need to be put in. And with that, I think we are at the point where I can call it a not so small little dev update, and I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.